As you know, it's very rare for Donald Trump to get shy when confronted with a microphone, camera, or reporter asking questions. And yet, that's exactly what happened. Donald Trump hung up on a reporter following a bombshell report revealing that he very probably engaged in the same sort of mortgage fraud that he's accusing his political opponents of engaging in and relentlessly prosecuting them. Yet, the latest Trump scandal and evidence of Trump criminality and hypocrisy. And it's so bad that Trump hung up on the reporter asking him questions. And for Donald Trump to hang up and run away rather than to try to redirect or to insult or attack just goes to show how bad this is. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, let's take a look at this bombshell reporting from ProPublica. Trump's own mortgages match his description of mortgage fraud, records reveal. The Trump administration has argued that Fed board member Lisa Cook may have committed mortgage fraud by declaring more than one primary residence on her loan. We found Trump once did the very same thing he is now calling, quote, deceitful and potentially criminal. Let's take a look. For months, the Trump administration has been accusing its political enemies of mortgage fraud for claiming more than one primary residence. Donald Trump has branded one foe who did so, quote, deceitful and potentially criminal. He called another, quote, crooked on Truth Social and pushed the attorney general to take action. But years earlier, Trump did the very thing he's accusing his enemies of, records show. In 1993, Trump signed a mortgage for a Bermuda-style home in Palm Beach, Florida, pledging it would be his principal residence. Just 7 weeks earlier, he got another mortgage for a 7-bedroom, marble-floored neighboring property, attesting that it, too, would be his principal residence. In reality, Trump, then a New Yorker, does not appear to have ever lived in either home, let alone used them as a primary residence. Instead, the two houses, which are next to his historic Mar-a-Lago estate, were used as investment properties and rented out, according to contemporaneous news accounts and an interview with his longtime real estate agent, exactly the sort of scenario his administration has pointed to as evidence of fraud. At the time of the purchases, Trump's local real estate agent told the Miami Herald that Trump had, quote, hired an expensive New York design firm to, quote, dress up to the nines and lease them out annually. In an interview, Shirley Weiner, the late real estate agent's wife and business partner, who was herself later the rental agent for the two properties, told ProPublica, quote, they were rentals from the beginning. Weiner, who has worked with the Trump family for years, added, quote, President Trump never lived there. Mortgage law experts who reviewed the records for ProPublica were struck by the irony of Trump's dual mortgages. They said claiming primary residences on different mortgages at the same time, as Trump did, is often legal and rarely prosecuted. But Trump's two loans, they said, exceed the low bar the Trump administration itself has set for mortgage fraud. Quote, given Trump's position on situations like this, he's going to either need to fire himself or refer himself to the Department of Justice, said Catherine Engel, a Suffolk University law professor and leading expert on mortgage finance. Quote, Trump has deemed this type of misrepresentation is sufficient to preclude someone from serving the country. Appreciate the professor for putting it that pointedly. Love that. I'm so glad that they're not, generous with the benefit of the doubt, nor should they be, that they just note the irony and the hypocrisy and throw some sarcasm in there. Chef's kiss. Mortgages for a person's main home tend to receive more favorable terms, like lower interest rates, than mortgages for a second home or an investment property. Legal experts said that having more than one primary residence mortgage can sometimes be legitimate, like when someone has to move for a new job, and other times can be caused by a clerical error. Determining ill intent on the part of the borrower is key to proving fraud. And the experts said lenders have significant discretion in what loans they offer clients. In this case, Trump used the same lender to buy the two Florida homes. But in recent months, the Trump administration has asserted that merely having two primary residence mortgage is evidence of criminality. Bill Pulte, and I want you to remember this name because we're going to come back to him, Bill Pulte, the Federal Housing Finance Agency director who's led the charge, said earlier this year, quote, if somebody is claiming two primary residences, that is not appropriate, and we will refer it for criminal investigation. So are you saying that you're going to do the same thing? Are you going to refer the sitting president, your boss, your cult leader? Are you going to make a criminal referral? Interesting. And this is what I love. Trump hung up on a ProPublica reporter after being asked whether his Florida mortgages were similar to those of he'd accused of fraud. So again, look, MAGA kisses Trump's ass. They say, oh, he's the most accessible, the most transparent president. He is accessible. He is not transparent, okay? He's not transparent because he very rarely answers questions directly or substantively because he's really stupid. But he is very much publicly accessible in that if he sees a camera and a microphone, He likes to put his face in front of it. And he is reportedly very accessible when it comes to text messages and phone calls. Like a lot of reporters actually have Donald Trump's phone number, which is unusual. You don't see that with a lot of presidents. But again, I'm not giving him credit for how he answers questions because he lies a lot and he very rarely answers questions substantively or cogently. But for Trump to just hang up on a report, think about it. You would expect even Trump, if he didn't like the question, to just go on the attack, to feel some sort of surge of confidence, right? Instead, he's like, oh shit, and just hangs up on the guy, right? That just, it's so telling about how insecure and fragile he is and how he knows that reporting here has him dead to rights. Not that anything will happen because, again, Trump's graded on a curve even by our criminal justice system, but I digress. In response to questions, a White House spokesperson told ProPublica, quote, Donald Trump's 2 mortgages you're referring to are from the same lender. There was no defraudation. It's illogical to believe that the same lender would agree to defraud itself. The spokesperson added, quote, this is yet another desperate attempt by the left-wing media to disparage Donald Trump with false allegations. Donald Trump has never or will ever break the law. The White House did not respond to questions about any other documents related to the transaction, such as loan applications, that could shed light on what Trump told the lender or if the lender made any exceptions for him. At the time Trump bought the 2 Florida properties, he was dealing with the wreckage of multiple high-profile failures at his casinos and hotels in the early 1990s. He famously recounted seeing a panhandler on Fifth Avenue around this time and telling his companion, quote, right now that man is worth $900 million more than I am. In December 1993, he married the model Marla Maples in an opulent ceremony at the Plaza Hotel. And in Florida, he was pushing local authorities to let him turn Mar-a-Lago, then a residence, into a private club. Trump bought the 2 homes, which both sit on Woodbridge Road directly north of Mar-a-Lago, and got mortgages in quick succession in 1993 and 1994. The lender on both mortgages, one for $525,000 and one for $1.2 million, was Merrill Lynch. Each of the mortgage documents signed by Trump contained the standard occupancy requirement that he must make the property his principal residence within 60 days and live there for at least a year unless the lender agreed otherwise or there were extenuating circumstances. But ProPublica could not find evidence that Trump ever lived in either of the properties. Legal documents and federal election records from the period gave his address as Trump Tower in Manhattan. Trump would officially change his permanent address to Florida only decades later, in 2019. A Vanity Fair article published in 1994 describes Trump spending his time in Manhattan and at Mar-a-Lago itself. Trump's real estate agent, who told the local press that the plan from the beginning was to rent out the 2 satellite homes, was quoted as saying, quote, Mr. Trump, in effect, is in a position to approve who his neighbors are. In the ensuing years, listings popped up in local newspapers advertising each of the homes for rent. At one point in 1997, the larger of the 2 homes, a 7-bedroom, 7-bathroom Mediterranean revival mansion, was listed for $3,000 per day. Even if Trump did violate the law with his 2 primary residence mortgages in Florida, the loans have since been paid off in the mid-1990s as well outside the statute of limitations for mortgage fraud. It provides documentation here. A spokesperson for Bank of America, which now owns Merrill Lynch, did not answer questions about the Trump mortgages. But it's highly unlikely we would have original documents for a 32-year-old transaction. But generally, in private client mortgages, the terms of the transactions are based on the overall relationship, the spokesperson said. Quote, and the mortgages are not backed by or sold to any government-sponsored entity. Trump's 2 mortgages in Palm Beach bear similarities to the loans taken out by political rivals whom his administration has accused of fraud. And again, it goes into how Trump has made all sorts of accusations against Letitia James, right, the New York Attorney General, and others as well as engaging in voter fraud. And yet what Trump did is basically identical, okay? Again, the hypocrisy is on full display. Now, I mentioned in the reporting Bill Pulte, whom I've talked about in previous videos, especially when the prosecution of Letitia James and others have come up. I told you to put a pin in that name because we would redress it or return to it. And here we're doing just that. As Axios reported just a few days ago, Trump ally Bill Pulte under investigation by congressional watchdog. Interesting. The Government Accountability Office confirmed Thursday it opened an investigation into Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte amid complaints about his efforts to go after Donald Trump's opponents. The GAO inquiry will raise the heat on Pulte, who is also reportedly caught up in a grand jury probe related to the various mortgage fraud investigations he's pursued this year. So he's under investigation not just by an ethics watchdog for the federal government, but also a federal grand jury investigating the handling of the Adam Schiff criminal probe. Let's take a look. Come on. A federal grand jury is investigating the handling of the Justice Department's criminal investigation into Democratic Senator Adam Schiff, according to a law enforcement source and a subpoena to a witness requesting information about her communications with individuals purporting to be involved in the probe. The subpoena obtained by NBC News was sent to conservative activist Christine Bish, who testified before the grand jury Thursday. It asked for any records Bish has from anyone, quote, claiming to be William Pulte, the Trump administration's director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, as well as anyone claiming to work for him, including his chief of staff. The subpoena also requested any communications or documentations Bish has from, quote, anyone claiming to be acting at the direction or request of Ed Martin, who's the Justice Department's self-described weaponization bar. And here's this fucking loser right here, Bill Pulte. Let's see. The subpoena sent to Bish specifically cited records pertaining to the investigation of Adam Schiff, in addition to seeking information about anyone purporting to be or work for Pulte or Martin. The subpoena also requested communication or documentation from anyone claiming to be working for at the direction of the Justice Department, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, including Robert Bose or Scott Strauss. So, yeah, let's see. NBC News reported last month that the federal mortgage fraud investigation into Schiff had stalled. One of Trump's chief political foes, Schiff served as the lead impeachment manager in the House during Trump's first impeachment in 2020. He's denied any wrongdoing in response to the Trump administration's investigation into mortgage fraud allegations. So, now he's being investigated by a grand jury and now by the GAO. Let's see. The probe is in response to a November 17th request from 8 Senate Democrats asking the GAO to look into how the FHFA conducts mortgage fraud investigations and any changes Pulte had made to those procedures. So we will see. Oh, actually, I'll point this out too. He's been a persistent critic of the Federal Reserve. He accused Fed Governor Lisa Cook of mortgage fraud, lobbed other accusations at Letitia James and Adam Schiff. Pulte's conduct has not always won him allies. He's reportedly clashed with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who accused him of bad-mouthing him to Trump. He also came under fire after convincing Trump to pitch the idea of a 50-year mortgage, which is really stupid and financially irresponsible. Pulte also touted it as a way to improve housing affordability. Critics were quick to point out that it would simply lower monthly mortgage payments while costing Americans more over the long term. So, yeah, this guy is under all sorts of investigations. He's an asshole and abuses his power. And it's just ironic to me and wildly hypocritical that Trump, we have him dead to rights doing the very same thing that Trump and Pulte are going after Trump's enemies for. And Trump is so insecure about it that when a reporter confronted him about it, he hung up. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.